Hello everyone, welcome back. We're finally here once again, this time for FP2, and we have a bit more of a representative session with the night sky and the lights on. Welcome to Bahrain and welcome to Max Verstappen. He is back on track, good to see him. Currently P3, we've got Antonelli P2 after their issues in FP1. They're finally back, which is good indeed. And just a bit of news for you, as we have just come from FP1. Since then, and since the beginning of FP2, we actually ended up seeing Alonso. I don't know if they accidentally removed their steering wheel or if it fell off as they entered turn 1. Pretty scary to not have any steering when you're trying to go through a corner. Luckily it was when they were entering, so I think they would probably be okay. But yeah, it was a little bit of a scary moment. They've got a new steering wheel now, and they should be good to go. I say that, they haven't actually gone out again just yet, so they've got a bit more time before they can reassure us that they are all good to go. We've now got all 20 drivers back on the grid. FP1 saw a few rookies. That was Dino Beganovic, we had Felipe Drugovic, we had, oh, I'm trying to remember now, Hirakawa, and why can't I remember? Iwasa, there you go, we had Iwasa as well. We had a few more, I'm pretty sure as well. We had Fred Vesti, of course. I may have missed a few, but Luke Browning as well. There you go. Finally, now we're back with the 20 drivers. We're good to go. We can get some good timings in. This is going to be the most important practice session of the 3, as it is the closest to the qualifying and race start time. Tomorrow we will be having FP3 in the afternoon Bahrain time, and then in the evening time we'll get qualifying and also evening race time as well. So this is what is going to be the most advantageous session for everybody. They're going to want to try and maximize this one with no issues, and Antonelli's going to be happy that they had their issues earlier on compared to now. So Antonelli has effectively had about 5 minutes in the car, maybe a little bit more, but other than that, not too much. Russell has had no minutes in the car, as they were out for Fred Vesti, of course, at the beginning. Oh, sorry, in FP1. So Mercedes really don't have much data for their main drivers, as George Russell just goes P1. But they still do have a decent amount of data because Fred Vesti still put the laps in. So they're not completely on the back foot. They're just not in the most ideal situation that they would have wanted to have been in, of course. Now, Russell did go over track limit, so that lap time's probably going to be deleted. I would assume. If it's not, I'd be very surprised. We'll wait to see what the call is on that one. Dipping a wheel into the gravel, many cars doing that. At turn number 5? 6? Turn 6? Turn 5? Turn 5. Lots of cars doing it there. On the exit of 4. Now Hamilton has put on the soft tyre and is going to go again. So they backed off after setting that first sector, the purple sector, which is a shame. We would have been able to see what Hamilton could do, although we can kind of see what they can do right now. 2 tenths away on this tyre. I say that on this tyre. They have been on a different tyre, I believe. I don't believe this is the same one because they are currently on 2-lap old soft tyres. So backed off on that lap, and now they're going to be going again. FP1, we saw Lando Norris go fastest, but will Piastri be able to go faster than Lando overall this weekend? They seem to be the quicker of the two. Back in Japan, I'm sure they will maybe play that down in any press releases, but obviously it did seem to the broadcast that Piastri was the faster car, despite not being able to overtake. Around Bahrain, there's more overtaking opportunities, so could we see the Australian driver get a better result, maybe get their second win of the season? The only driver they would be to get 2 wins in the season so far. We have had 3 race winners in 3 races, plus a kind of half a race winner in Lewis Hamilton, who won that sprint race, not a full Grand Prix, but still took victory nonetheless. This is really going to be a track where the McLaren should become very, very powerful. With the 2-stop being very, very likely. Would we see more pit stops? I'm not sure, but the 2-stop is incredibly likely. And I think the McLarens will have a severe advantage. It will give them a very, very nice benefit when it comes to strategy plays. They're going to have quite a not comfortable situation, but they should have the advantage according to recent events. And of course last season they seemed to be in a very good place regarding that situation. Whether it will be the same again, I don't know. Okay, so Lewis struggling at turn 8. That's why they had to back off on their fast lap. So they are still out on track, but not going faster. Just staying where they are at the moment. Getting some running, so I'm sure they're happy with that. We saw a mix of hards, mediums and softs being run so far this weekend, even though we've only had an hour and 20 on the clock. But it's a pretty nice mix-up compared to some other times. Notably Baku last season, we just didn't see any cars out on, I think it was the hard tyre. And then they ended up using the hard tyre as a race tyre, and everyone struggled in the race. So it was a weird one. I'm sure there's a reason that I'm not aware of because I don't have the data, but yeah, it was a bit of a strange one. And there Hamilton does go fastest. So not fastest in the first sector compared to their previous best, but they do go purple in the middle and they go green in the final one. And that is just under half a tenth ahead of their former teammate George Russell in their former team Mercedes. Antonelli following closely behind. And Max Verstappen is right on the pace, even after having an hour away compared to most of the other cars. That being said, Russell is as well. Now Aston Martin working very, very rapidly to try and get Fernando back on track. I thought it would have been a bit more of a quick fix, like a steering wheel swap, but it doesn't seem to be that simple. They are making some more changes. That is why the Spaniard is still in the pit lane with no lap time currently set. That puts Oliver Behrman at the back of the pack so far with a 1:09. The back of the pack regarding the fact that they've set a lap time, of course. Charles Leclerc goes and beats his teammate to the top spot. Almost 2 tenths ahead as well. Lovely stuff. Green in the first and final. Purple in the middle sector, beating Hamilton's middle sector right there. So Ferrari are trying to push it a bit earlier on the pace. Will they be able to challenge this weekend? They've been fast, but they just haven't been consistently fast. They also got caught out in China in the main Grand Prix, of course, with that double disqualification after 2 different reasons for being disqualified. So a little bit of a strange one. Tsunoda currently not getting on too badly with the car at the moment. P11 for him, and about not 8 tenths, about 6 tenths away from his teammate. So considering his comparison, which was Lawson, he's having a bit of a nicer time at the moment with that car. And you've got to be happy with it, of course. Their goal? Try and get into Q2 and 3. I say that. They got into Q2, I believe. They need to get into Q3. So they need to try and make sure that they're in the top 10, ready to start the Grand Prix, where they can make the most of that car, make the most of the pace, and not have to try and work all the way through to get to where they ideally want to be. I'm not going to say where they should be, but where they want to be. Albon going top. Verstappen, though, purple in the first sector, likely to go incredibly fast in the middle and third sector as well on that soft tyre. Fresh too, as the top 10 do have fresh tyres currently on. So we're going to see a lot of quick laps. We also see Duran to Bortoleto also on that soft tyre. All on the fresh ones. The medium tyres are a mix of scrub and fresh, but they all have a few laps on them. That's Lance Stroll to P7, the man who finished last in Japan, and Lawrence Stroll was apparently not happy at all with that result. Lance Stroll's got to try and find a bit more. Whether it was a team side issue or a driver issue, we don't know, but it's Verstappen who goes top by 3.5 tenths. Not purple in that final sector, and gets beaten in the first sector immediately by Lando Norris, who's currently P11 on that fresh set of soft tyres. Will they go purple in that middle sector as well, or will Max Verstappen hold their own where they are? Brilliant lap there from Max. Lando Norris apparently a bit wide into turn 10. They're slightly struggling, but will they be able to go purple or green? That's the question. P11 over the sector line. What are they going to get? It's another purple. They are on cue to currently get to the top spot. As long as they keep that final sector nice and clean, they should be good to go. Bortoleto to P4 on the soft tyre. Brilliant lap from them. But it's Lando Norris out the final corner and up to the line. DRS available, and it will be P1. 6 tenths ahead of Max Verstappen. Getting beaten in the first sector by George Russell immediately. Not going purple in that final sector either. So everyone is pushing a little bit now, slowly getting faster and faster, bled into this session. Now, I did have a look at the lap times from last year, earlier on in FP1, to see what we were looking at. FP1 2024, the fastest times were 32.8. We didn't reach that in FP1, but FP2 we definitely have. We've gone over it. We've gone very close to FP2 times, and we're going to try and get very close to the next ones. That's Piastri beating his teammate immediately with the second and third middle sectors going fastest. Russell goes green in that middle sector, doesn't quite go purple, so needs to try and find a bit more in that final sector to keep it competitive. it might be a miss out, and they do stay behind Lando Norris. P3 for them, a very respectable lap with that purple first sector over the McLaren for sure. By 2/10 as well on Oscar Piastri. Kimi Antonelli goes 2/10 behind George Russell's overall time. Isaac Hadjar to P5, that's brilliant for him. I'm going to go back to the times to have a quick look. So FP2, we ended up last year with Lewis Hamilton on top for Mercedes, 30.374, and we're now on the 0.505. So we're not too far away from that right now. And then FP3 are 30.824. So we do expect FP3 to be slower than FP2, in my opinion. And we saw that, of course, last year as well. So we're probably... this is going to be the session to see if we do go faster than last year. And then qualifying, we had a 29.1 from Max Verstappen in the end in the Red Bull car. 29.165 was actually the fastest time by Charles Leclerc in Q2. Wasn't able to replicate that one. Yeah, just having a look at 29.165 was the fastest time from Charles Leclerc in Q2. And Max Verstappen wasn't too far away from it in the next session to take that pole position lap time in the end. So how close can we get to that? Can we beat it? Top 4 drivers currently in the pit lane. Isaac Hadjar set a recent lap. We've got Verstappen in the pit lane as well. We've got George Russell saying that he's got a helmet issue where it's lifting off his head a little bit too much. He wants to try and get some sort of aerodynamic device on his helmet to try and stop that from happening, and that will be in the form of a spoiler or a little flap to try and make sure on the front of the helmet it's pushed down by the airflow, and that will help it stay on a little bit better. But you got to make sure that you don't go too overkill, because if you end up putting too big of a aerodynamic change on your helmet, then you could end up forcing it onto your head and downwards a little bit too much, and that can really affect you quite badly, especially if you're trying to do a practice distance or a race distance in a practice session. It can be quite uncomfortable, so they do have to be careful with what they do. Now, as we're continuing through the session, I just want to have a look at Isaac Hadjar. I know I had some good comments for him in FP1 already, but I have to say, very impressive so far this season. And continuing to impress. Although it's practice, all the cars are starting to bring the pace up a little bit more and use this session as a more important one than FP3. And we see Hadjar to P5. Of course, it's probably not where that racing ball is sat, but still an incredibly impressive start to the season for Isaac Hadjar. They have done a really good job. Compared to what they were expected to do, I think it was expected that they wouldn't really do too much in the car, and it would be just kind of a filled-in seat waiting for some others to come through. But no, they've really, really impressed. And I can't wait to see what they can do for the rest of the season. I think they'll be able to do some pretty good things. If they've done what they've done so far, coming back from Australia, a terrible start to the season, a terrible first race of the season, to do what they've done in China and then in Japan especially, scoring good points, they're in a very strong position for hopefully the rest of the season and maybe the rest of their career. They've got to make sure that they keep that together though, because what we saw in F2 is that they had a very good start to the season but kind of lost it in the second half. That's where Bortoleto took victory in Formula 2 last season with the consistency. They are known as Mr. Consistent, Bortoleto himself. So Isaac Hadjar, Bortoleto trying to race against each other realistically here. And Hadjar's having the early start to the season benefits. Oliver Behrman struggling with the last corner, he says. Having a few issues on track. Maybe struggling with inconsistency, trying to figure out what the corner wants to do, what the car wants to do with the corner. They've got plenty of time in this session to go. 26 minutes on the clock as we continue. Gasly not setting an improvement lap, but setting a lap. They stay 16th. They're on the scrub and slightly older soft tyre at the moment. Just trying to get a feel for the compound. Would they be using it as a race tyre? I'm not sure. I'm really not sure. That's Lewis Hamilton going incredibly deep into the final corner. Still keeping it within track limits it seemed, but had to slow it right down. P7 for them. Beating their teammate, but yeah, that's a big opportunity for improvement for Lewis Hamilton. I did not expect them to be doing that one. That mistake at that final corner there. Still got to try and get that Ferrari ahead of the Racing Bull if they can. That would be great news for the team. I think Hamilton still probably happy with his decision moving to Ferrari. Of course, Mercedes do seem to be the slightly quicker car out of the two teams. But he's driving a Ferrari. I think that's part of the reason why he moved. Why wouldn't you want to drive a Ferrari, that's for sure. So, still going to be fairly happy. Just trying to get himself bled into the team a little bit more. I think Sainz is in a similar situation, trying to get themselves embedded with the team a little bit more, taking some time. Now we're in race 4. Another 2 races, and that would get us to where Sergio Perez said he would win his first race at Red Bull. He said 6 races in, and I'll be able to win, and he won in the 6th race. I believe he did. And Carlos Sainz is probably going to be trying to follow no more than 6 races if he can as well. Currently sitting ahead of his teammate, but did get pretty well beaten by Albon in the last FP1 session. This is the more representative one, so we can see what they're doing. Lots of drivers struggling with that final corner right now. Verstappen's just radioed in to say he's also struggling with it. Seems to be a tricky one, as it kind of opens up. It's quite a wide corner, and it really can make you push a little bit harder, and then you end up just going a bit too deep. Going to be Leclerc improving to P4, splitting the Mercedes and beating their teammate. Half a second as well. Pretty impressive stuff for Leclerc over Hamilton. On very fresh tyres for the both of them as well. Hamilton is in the pit lane at the moment, but previously set their lap time. Track evolution, of course, will be a thing, so we do have to consider that a little bit, but I think half a second is still a decent amount and something that Lewis will be happy with. Now, it seems that the Mercedes is quicker in the top-end speed parts of the circuit compared to the McLaren. The McLaren's quicker in the high downforce sections and the acceleration zones, traction zones, but the Mercedes just has that top-end performance, which really isn't what we've seen in previous seasons. Usually the Mercedes is incredibly slow in a straight line compared to other cars, has its benefits elsewhere, but no, now they've switched it around a little bit compared to the McLarens, and George Russell is going nice and smoothly around the circuit. I'm not entirely sure if their lap time was deleted earlier on. I'm sure it would have said on the race director screen on your screen, green light pit exit open. So his lap time that he went over track limits with earlier on actually ended up being valid. Now, it's only practice, so I don't think you need to look into it too much, but with the recent FIA notes or posts, of course questions with its management, they've got to be careful and get on top of it this weekend, especially compared to other weekends. "20 minutes on the clock. Currently, Piastri, Norris, Russell, Leclerc, Antonelli are the top 5. Hadjar, Verstappen, Hamilton, Behrman, Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon just behind his teammate by under a tenth. Then it's Liam Lawson, Bortoletto, Doohan, Ocon, Gasly, Tsunoda, Stroll, Hulkenberg and Alonso at the back of the pack. Now back out on track since their issues earlier on. Good to see them once again on track. Now, Doohan, ahead of his teammate at the moment. Can he try and make that throughout the weekend? They've got a lot to try and do here to prove themselves. And I have to be honest, considering the start of the season that they've had and considering their situation, they have to basically beat Gasly. That's the bottom line. I don't think getting closer or close to Gasly is going to be enough. Maybe fighting Gasly or sitting right behind him would be an idea, but he's got to try and do something a little bit more here. I know Doohan does take time to get used to his cars usually. It can be a little bit of a struggle sometimes, but he can perform once he knows the car well. He might not have that time that he's looking for. Now Fernando Alonso on that fresh soft tyre, looking to try and do something here in the session. They've set their lap time earlier on. They actually came out on track earlier on. I must have missed that one. On the medium tyre, I believe. Now they're on the soft. And they're looking to try and get themselves away from 20th place. And ahead of their teammate, who's only 18th at the moment. Not too far ahead. But still on a fresh soft tyre with 17 minutes to go. It should be a time where they look to go a lot further up on the order. Let's see what they can do as they come around the final corner and out of it. Fernando Alonso. Only P15. Of course, they've had those issues and they haven't exactly been dialed into the session so far. Not as much time as everybody else in the session. But still, with Track Evolution, I'm sure they were hoping for a little bit more than that. Overall, that's a lot done. Nothing you can do about it now. We've got Oliver Behrman struggling with the brakes once more instead of the final corner. Now into turn one, locking up those tyres. That is something that can be very common around this circuit. You can lock up the tyres at Bahrain, and the disadvantage is a very abrasive surface means that you will lose out a lot if you do lock up. So in the race, we're going to be looking for drivers to not lock up at every opportunity, and if they do, they could be severely punished. Maybe some extra pit stops, maybe a bit of extra tyre wear on those cars to change their pit strategy. That's what we're going to be looking at. That's what we're going to be hoping no one has, but expecting that it will happen at least. Like turn 1, turn 2 and turn 3 at Bahrain on Sunday is going to be absolutely crazy, and I can't wait. It's going to be a good one. And we're going to see a few lockups, so we're going to see a bit of contact. It would be very possible to see contact, but with an open circuit like this, it could be possible that we keep it nice and clean around Bahrain. It's always been 50-50 in the past, sometimes very clean, sometimes very, very, very chaotic. 15 minutes on the clock. Tsunoda's getting more laps in that car, trying to get himself comfortable, but sat in P18 at the moment. Of course, they're on a different tyre and they're looking to do a different strategy at the moment. Maybe focusing on some race pace at the moment as they try and get themselves ready for the race on Sunday to try and get into the points, of course. Whether they can get that dialed in or not, I don't know, but they do need to make sure that that qualifying is sorted, because that is where it's going to make you work a lot harder in the race and affect you. Max Verstappen also struggling with brake problems, not able to slow the car down. Lots of drivers having issues. We've got Alex Albon out on a scrub set of softs, but fairly fresh of that. Carlos Sainz is on a similar tyre as well, but straight into the pit lane as we speak. Alex Albon, all eyes on the man to try and set a decent lap. Don't think it would be an improvement, but it could be a decent lap. With track evolution as well to add, that would be quite nice. Alrighty. Last 12 minutes of the session. We're going to get a few drivers possibly doing some qualifying simulations, although it seems to be that maybe qualifying simulations were done earlier on in the session. For that reason, it would have been because the session was a little bit earlier on. Maybe slightly more relative to where everything else would be, but I'm sure a few drivers who currently have the soft tyres on will be doing some sort of simulation, even if the tyres aren't going to be going as fast as they could be. Now, everybody currently out on track. We've got a mix of tyres, but everybody is still out on track, and it is a very busy circuit. As we saw earlier on, there were a few moments where a lot of cars were out on track and it was incredibly busy. We actually saw Alex Albon impede Luke Browning. Almost ended up in a crash and was investigated. Isaac Hadjar trying to overtake one of the Saubers as they're running, and complaining about one of the Saubers who's out ahead of him on track, getting in his way. I think he had to back off in the end and try and maybe go for another lap. We've got Nico Hulkenberg out on track at the moment. I'm led to believe that it was Hulkenberg that was ahead of Hadjar. Currently at the back of the pack right now. His teammate P13. There's a few tenths in it for sure. And Hulkenberg trying to get some soft tyre running in before this session comes to a close. The man with 15 years, I say 15 years of experience, has been in Formula 1 for 15 years. Whether they have raced in it in all of those 15 years, it's a different story. Alrighty, sorry for the noise, we'll be back. Seven minutes on the clock, in the 7-minute range at least. Still, everyone out on track at the moment. Very busy circuit, very good data for race scenarios, of course. But we do have a lot of cars coming away from that hard tyre, except from Gasly, and either going back onto a set of softs or mediums. Now, Oscar Piastri on some very, very, very fresh soft tyres. They are scrub tyres though, so we do have to keep that in mind for when they're going to set lap times. But they do have, basically for this session, almost a maxed out track for Track Evolution. They've got a bit of clear air ahead of them as well. They've got one of the Ferraris in front, but still a bit of a distance away. And I believe both Ferraris are going a decent pace at the moment, so Oscar should be good to complete this lap and set a pretty competitive lap time. That being said, he goes 1.7 seconds away from his previous best in the first sector, and will be quite far down by the time they complete this lap, but still pushing nonetheless. Now Oscar Piastri crosses the line, and it is going to be a 36. Massively off compared to their previous laps. But a lap nonetheless. George Russell going completely off the circuit, doing not even a 360 by spinning up the tyres, just completely driving in a circle as they go off at turn 10. And then they rejoin the circuit once again. Only a few minutes left to decide our second hour of the weekend for Formula One, before we go to the LSI race later on this evening in Brazil for a sprint race event. And the soft tyres are still incredibly popular at the moment, except from Gasly. And for Doohan as well, no soft tyres at the moment. They're staying on the medium and the hard. The harder compounds at the moment. Our first pit stop in a while. That is Lewis Hamilton, who will likely finish this session here, unless they come out again to try and have a go at maybe a practice start. Still lots of traffic out on circuit though. Regardless of that, that is Lewis Hamilton straight back out onto track once again, as expected. Okay, 7,000 euros fine for Williams after that impeding moment. That's what's just been said. That is strange. I didn't expect it. I did not expect it Two cars of the same team tripping over each other, why would they be fined? I can understand if it was incredibly dangerous. I haven't seen the replay myself, but still. 7,000 euros is a lot of money. 1 minute and 40 seconds left on the clock as we come to the final moments of this session. And we get some pit stop practice for the Racing Bulls, as they send Hajar immediately back out. And as expected, they're all looking for the practice starts. Max Verstappen continues to have issues as they are currently in the later part of their lap at the moment, coming up through the final few corners onto the penultimate straight, effectively before the start-finish straight, to end the lap. Seems to have really struggled so far. P7 at the moment, behind Hajar. You think that the Red Bull is behind the Racing Bull, then yeah, it would make us think that maybe that car is pretty tricky to drive at the moment. And if that's the case, Tsunoda, who I thought was doing alright, has had issues as well. Down in P18. It's only FP2. It's not qualifying just yet, but as I said, FP2 should be more representative compared to other sessions. Verstappen getting a big snap on the exit of 3, staying on the racing line as George Russell tries to catch up and go through. Eventually lets George go through, but blocked him into turn 4. Doesn't let him past. So George is gonna not have maybe the best representation of what they were looking for, as they seem to be pushing quite hard. There's the checkered flag, and there's Albon taking the flag first. Everyone else will start to cross the line, including the Haas car of Oliver Behrman. As everybody is going through, we've got a bit of traffic going on. We've got a few cars making their way around the circuit, and we'll have a few cars looking to go for those practice starts. That's why they go for their late pit stops. They get a bit of pit stop practice, and then they come back out on track to do their practice starts ready for the race on Sunday. That's Piastri, Norris and Russell finishing their session. It's Leclerc that we're just waiting to go across the line, and they do so. Antonelli, Hajar finished. Verstappen has also finished. Hamilton finishes. Behrman as well. Carlos Sainz we are waiting on. And we've got Tsunoda also complaining about the brakes as well, this time in the fronts, and locking up. So that Red Bull seems to have its braking issues. Ocon, the only car left to come across the line. They do so, and I can confirm Oscar Piastri is fastest in FP2, ahead of Lando Norris, who gets beaten to it to get the double, and it's Russell in P3. Leclerc splits the two Mercedes with Antonelli in P5. Hajar with a brilliant lap in P6. We've got Verstappen, the lead Red Bull in P7. Hamilton in P8. We've got Behrman, Sainz finishing the top 10, followed by his teammate Albon, Lawson, Bortoletto, Jack Doohan, Fernando Alonso after a difficult start to this session. Then we have Esteban Ocon, Pierre Gasly, Yuki Tsunoda struggling in P18. We've got Lance Stroll in P19 and Hülkenberg at the back of the pack. Everyone will continue out on circuit to do their practice starts, and then the session will be done. We will see you later on for the LSI F1 World Championship at Brazil for a sprint race event. We'll see you tomorrow for FP3 and for qualifying and for the LSI F1.5 EU Championship once again at Brazil. We can't wait. Thank you very much, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.